And good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, everybody. Welcome on into the Dragon's Den. My name is Digital Dragon, and I'm your host today. Welcome on in, everybody. Mr. Wizik, Shadell, Pete, glad to see you guys here. It seems like it's been a while. I was unable to stream Tuesday night. Um, we had I was on the phone doing some monitoring. I had various things going on with family members in the hospital up in Virginia, out in Colorado. I don't know. I was like, I think at this point, I'm just going to get a go bag packed and ready and sitting aside just in case I have to jump on a plane and go somewhere. Uh, but yeah, Tuesday was a little frazzled. Uh, it's been a long week, a lot going on with work as well. So I'm just a little, that's why you'll notice the stream title for today is more around a chat and chill and not a dedicated ERCFA or dedicated whatever build today, because I'm still feeling a little bit scatterbrained. And I think we're just going to go wherever it takes us today. We're going to work a little bit on getting the servo ready to replace the MG90S servo in the ERCFA. And we'll take it from there. And when I say we'll take it from there, it's because I'm still having a thought as to whether or not either one of these two motors also probably needs to go, just because I don't know the full back end provenance. I believe this is a FISEC, we'll call it generic branded FISEC that's been stamped with DFH. I do happen to have a LDO motors over there, and I think when I go to build the next one, I'm just going to get a set of LDO motors, probably both NEMA 17s. When I go to redo that one, we'll see. Right now, I'm waiting for the C130 fans on this thing to stop. And I'm probably going to help it out because I can't hear myself think right now. So we'll do this the easy way. And there we go. Now I can hear myself think a little bit more. So how's everybody doing this evening? How's everybody doing? What's everybody working on today? This week? So as you see, I have been, well, maybe able to see. I have been printing on this. I've been printing a lot on this. In fact, I've been working my way through a 3 kilogram spool. And yes, when I cut the centerpiece for this spool holder, I cut it way short. And so any movement on this and it falls down and through. So I just grabbed a spare length of the 1/2 inch tube that I've been doing to build my filament shelves. And I think this is the last one that I need of the actual front and rear pieces. So I'll kind of show you how much progress I've made there. Once again, there's been no, we'll say there's been no set color scheme here, other than I was going to try and make all black doors with some accent handles. And I've had some issues with the trying to print the doors. And in trying to print the doors, basically what's happening is I am peeling the bed, the actual print bed surface, off of the printer. it peeled up all four corners, which fouled the print, and it's in the last few layers that it's doing it. So basically what that's telling me is even after a multi-hour print, the chamber temperature is not getting hot enough. So makes sense. This is a 350. It's a little bit larger volume than we're used to dealing with. So I ordered some parts. And you'll say, well, what parts did you order? I ordered a 110 a 110 PTC heating element with a 12-volt fan that I can swap out with a 24-volt 6020 or whatever as I need to plug it in with the so Mr. Wizzix, the that main plate, it's 17 millimeters thick, and it prints for about 6 hours. So doing a normal like 30-minute heat soak and then printing for 7 hours, and it peeled up all four corners with a brim. And when I say peeled up the corners, I do not mean that it peeled off the bed. I mean it lifted the build plate off of the magnet on all four corners. So what I'm going to do is in the bottom left corner down here, I am going to mount a 110 volt so a mains voltage PTC heater with a 12 or 24 volt fan. We all know most of our controllers these days can just swap out the voltage relatively easily. I've ordered 4 new SSRs just to have some bench stock, because if this works well in this printer, PTCs will go into a couple of my PTC-based chamber heaters. Think the Keyditech, the recent Keyditech kerfuffle. I'm going to put one of those in. Now, what's going to happen is, and the one that I actually have on hand is downstairs. And I don't know where the one goes in the appropriate, oh, there it is. So I printed a couple of these out. One in the pop pink and one in the polycarbonate CF. And this is basically going to mount like this, but in the back corner over here. And I'll have the heater with the plastic. Ooh. So the heater, great, will come with a plastic grill cover like this, right? This will then get mounted on the pop pink, and you'll have your actual heating element and a fan. So the fan's blowing through the heating element, which kind of looks like a reverse radiator, and into the chamber. Now I'm going to do it in this lower left-hand corner, so it's going to be blowing out. On the right-hand corner over here, let me do a little show and tell here. So this will be over here. And of course, it's not going to stay up on its own. Let me see if I can help it out. And we'll bring you down and in here. So on the left-hand side over here, we'll have the PTC heater blowing diagonally underneath the bed into the chamber. Over on this side, we'll have our bento box. It sucks air from the top and out that big open trough at the bottom. So we're going to have some good convection going on here, and I'll be able to turn this on before I turn any of the other heaters on. So I can turn this one on to start preheating the overall chamber, then turn on my bed and my hot end to start warming things up the rest of the way. And we'll be able to get this chamber a little bit hotter. And I think that's going to be the only way I can combat the print curling up on something that's that big that I'm printing in ABS. I could also, and there's no reason why I can't print those doors in like PLA. And maybe I wouldn't have that problem if I print them in PLA. So, but you know me, I want to see that I can print large print bed size things on here because it's going to be the same size as this, but it's 17 millimeter thick, basically solid with 2 screw holes to hold the door pin. Okay. And I should have, while I had you guys out here or around here, I'll show you this. Nothing's fully tied down and tacked down yet. But let me bring you over here and kind of show you a bit what the workbench is looking like. So I have 2 pods of 4 drawers here. And I've figured out that I can have, I think it's like 7 spools of filament in each drawer. I got the soft drawer or soft door closures. So there you go. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spools of filament. And the plan will be to screw these down to the bottom shelf and then mark the top, drill through, countersink, and screw this top shelf down here. So it's all kind of interlinked. And then I've got space here that I can either do one more set of filament drawers, or I like this idea better, maybe put sides and a back on it and either make drawers in here or something like this where I can put tools that I need readily rather than leaving them all the way around places. And it may just be that I make a sliding tray for some Gridfinity stuff and then put things like, you know, the pliers and the ones that I have over on the bench stock for like my crimping tools and solder tools and stuff like that, so that they're easy. I can just pull them out, grab them, and go. So that I'm just tinkering around with the idea right now. And once I decide finally how I want to configure it, then I'll go and screw everything down and make it a little bit more solid. But that's my thought. The other thought I've had is this workbench here. So this bench top is, I don't know, between 1/4 and 1/2 inch thick. That MDF that I'm using is 1/2 inch thick, and it's just right level with the sides of the bench. So I'm thinking about swapping this out with 1/2 inch. The only difference is this is going to resist having the melamine top. It kind of resists the, any oil or grease or, whatever we get on it a little bit better. And we can wipe it off and wipe it down with IPA. So maybe I keep this here. Don't know. Just toying around. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this forward a little bit to the edge, bring our other camera over here because I need to solder some extension wire to the Savic servo and get it ready to get added to the selector up here on our Enraged Rabbit carrot feeder. so that we can swap out our MG90S servo with the Savix. And I'm hoping that I can potentially do that without having to take the whole selector apart. Yeah, I need to remove these two servos, and I think this should be able to slide out. I might have to take the encoder off as well to be able to get that to slide down and out. Then it's just a matter of fishing the wires through. Hey, Stephen Poole. Hey, T. Moore. Hey, Rodney Mack. Welcome in. We've just been chatting and chilling. Just chatting and chilling. I'm going to move this forward, and I think we're going to work on some soldering over on the other side of the bench. I don't want to drop this down on the ground or anything because we're going to need to get back up there to work on it. So we're just going to scoot it as far forward as possible so it's out of the way. And we'll switch cameras to our little mobile camera. Yeah. This over here somehow, somewhere. We'll be able to watch as I do some soldering over here. So grab this, change cameras. There we go. So now that I've got you over here, one of the other things I want to show you is once again on this skirt here, I found these parts that could pop into the skirt, and they allow you to mount a microfit 3 connector. So this is a microfit 3 a microfit 3 4-pin all side by side. I really wanted to do the 2/2 stack like you would see in a EBB 36, but I realized that I had these types. I didn't. So these are the male. Yeah, these are the male ends. I didn't have any female ends on hand, and I had to order some. So I just went ahead and used these. Just reprinted this part in the ring clip that locks it in. So that will allow me, if I ever need to take the Enraged Rabbit carrot feeder off, like I'm transporting it and going to a show rather than having this cantilevered out the back, I would take this off, undo the wires, and pull this out so I don't have anything sticking on the back, and makes it a lot easier to move the printer around. And when I say move this out the back so it's not sticking out the back, I meant the PTFE tube. You'll notice I changed the back plates and got rid of that angled tube. And that's because we had an issue where that angled tube got caught and kinked. And yeah, we just won't go into that. So I redid the spring steel wire around the umbilical, and I completely had to swap this out, and I was able to save like lengths of the tubing like that because there were so many kinks and hard bends in it. But this tube is still long enough that allows me to go around to the front of the ERCFv. But if I need to, I can take it, and I've had that 3 kilogram spool of ABS sitting on the ground, and it's been pulling it just fine up through here and into the extruder. So once again, I'm going to bring you over here. And of course, we're going to need to crimp on some JST connectors. a little bit. So we'll get those out of the way. And we're going to need to solder on some wires. There's a part of me that said, do I just undo that wire, pull it through the cable chain, and just cut and resolder that existing end? The problem I have with that, the cable chain used on the Enraged Rabbit carrot feeder, it doesn't open. So what that means is the best thing I'm going to be able to do is solder an end, cut off the end of this, solder the extension on, and before I do anything else to this, while it's like this and easy to pass, I need to pass this through the cable chain, pull the other one out, pass this through the cable chain, and then we'll keep going from there. So, hey, Tech Cheaper, welcome on in. Howdy, howdy. So we're going to swap out the MG90 for the Savix, and I think we'll need the 2 screws to actually screw this to the mounting plate, and then the center screw will need to mount the servo arm eventually. And if this opens up nicely, or if I'm going to have to cut it open. It opens up nicely. There we go. Basically, I'm not using any of the plastic arms. We're going to use the printed ones. So these will just go and add to our collection of various servo arms that we're having that we might be able to use for other projects if we reallocate servos for other builds. So we'll take these and set them off to the side for now. Those in the garbage can. We're going to need our other part of our soldering station. I'm going to get these out of the way because I don't want paper towels sitting on a surface that is going to see some heat here in the near future. I do want to try and clean that off real fast. Do darn it. Got a new toy and now I don't know what I do with that. Oh well. So I have gotten a Hodo vacuum, little USB rechargeable handheld vacuum to help me be able to clean the printers out a little bit easier. And let me tell you, yes, that's a beautiful thing. Now I'm just going to try and wipe this down. So we've got that. I need my servo, my wires. We're going to cut and strip the ends. And we're just going to extend these 3 wires. Of course, we're not going to be using the same colors, but we will come close. And as always, if you use something and pop these ends up, and you can pull your wire ends out, you can keep the plastic part for the DuPont later on. It's all about getting underneath here and lifting it up slightly without going too far and creasing the back end here. And you know what? I'm not even going to mess. Kind of how I'm feeling right now. So cut it off right there so we can use these. We'll strip these back. Now what we do need to remember is which wire is which on the servo. And I remember we got red, orange, and brown. The red is power, the brown is signal, and no, I'm thinking something else. But the red is the power. I was thinking RGB LEDs there for a second. Oh, I'm gonna pop this out to see how I verify how I did the colors. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea anyhow. Rewiring for the So if you remember back when we did this several streams ago, we had a we've had to bring wires from the encoder and the encoder and the servo. So in the case of the servo, we just use some there's this red, green, blue wire that we um, red, green, blue wire that we used from it was just excess motor wire. So I've trimmed that off. Now I should be able to pull the servo wire back through our cable chain. And oh, got one more cable tie. Cable tie and not a cable. So by cutting the end off of that, I should be able to pull that cable through the cable chain. I mean, there's only two cables in there, and that's the servo and the encoder. So I'm hoping I can get this to pull around fairly easily. And if not, then it'll be a case of just opening the chain up so I can take the bend out of it. Probably make it here. All right. Now that we're straight, Here we go. That came. Now, the servo wire is kind of standard. I will be able to off the excess heat shrink and see which wire I did to which one. Like forensic wiring, trying to stab myself all in one shot. Well, Novi, welcome on in. How are you doing? Um, Stripping on stream, I believe, is against Twitch TOS as of tomorrow. Because if you go and look, even on your suggested section, there's a whole lot of hot tub and whatever, what have you. And yeah, I kind of see the reason why they're changing the TOS again, because basically people can't be given things because they tend to go overboard. Okay, so looking at how I had wired this up the last time on the MG90, which was functioning, we of course had red to red, which is the center wire, green to brown, which was the outer wire, and blue to the orange. Okay, so just remember red to red, green to brown, and white to the orange, because once again, I'm using standard, this is just a length of wire I got for RGB lighting. It'll work good in this instance. So what we're working on today, Royal Nomi, is we are just going to swap out our MG90 servo with the Savix, which is a little bit nicer, a little bit heavier weight. Got a little bit more torque to it. So yeah, we're just going to make these adjustments here. And of course, after we do this, we're going to have to go and reset our servo up down. I don't necessarily think we'll need to change our recalibrate the length to the extruder. So I tried when I replaced the bone tube to line it up and cut the same length. But we may have to, it may still be wise to go back and swap that out. So hey, Solar, how's it going? Welcome on in. I was going to say, well, since we've got lighting extension wire out here, who knows? Maybe we'll work on finishing the sign that Solar 3DP made for us. That going, I need to go ahead and get my heat shrink so I don't forget and then have to do weird shenanigans to make my wires protected. So shenanigans. I was on your stream today, but I was never, we'll say, actively engaging because I was sitting in meetings. Um, Sitting in meetings, and when I looked back up, I was like, "Oh, we're at the Free Heathen now." So we're done for that with that for now. Okay, so we had said red to red. Ah, where did that go? Oh no, pull the standard and dropped it down onto the bench somehow. So I'll have to get another piece of heat shrink. I'm just going to do these one by one. Otherwise, I will get myself confused probably the way my day's going, the way my week's going. Yeah, exactly. They're just children in fully grown bodies, and that's evident in my corporate dealings as well. Um, it's kind of sad. All right, so we said red to red, red middle wire, red. This started here, get this here, got out of the way, get this going. I guess at some point I'm going to need a soldering iron to actually solder stuff with. Going okay, you just started up the new bamboo. Oh, nice. So what we're doing is we're going to replace the MG90 servo in the Enraged Rabbit carrot feeder because I think I'm just having too many inconsistency issues um, in the servo up down movement, and so I'm going to attempt to well, they used to use the MG90 servo in Enraged Rabbit carrot feeder V1. In later iterations, I think 1.1 and for 2, they recommend the Savix. And that's what I did was went ahead and ordered the Savix. I wanted to try and get the MG90 to work because it's what comes in the kit from it came in the kit from DFH. Coffee right over there. I guess it helps if I actually whoops, get started by pushing the button that says, hey, heat up. But I got the couple of parts here that we're going to use to redo this because there are a couple of different printed parts. I thought there were other parts that were going to be needed, but it turns out it's basically this mount that slides in and then a different arm um, on the servo itself or that attaches to the servo itself. So like standard, we're just going to 10 our wires. Both wires. Join them up in holy matrimony. apply a little bit of heat, call it date night. And one and done. The next up, we're going to need the brown wire and the green one. Same thing, get these together, get them lined up. By side, top, bottom, and apply a little bit of heat. Better for worse, for richer for poorer. These are now joined together in fully electrical matrimony. Last but not least, our white wire and our orange wire. And hopefully you all have picked up on what we're going to do. We're going to 10 each end, hold them side by side, and apply heat and remelt the solder that's on them, and we'll get a very quick, nice, good connection. Okay, we'll take a quick look. This one more time. I think I'm just going to be an animal on this like I did the last time and just use the iron to shrink this rather than try and, go through the process of getting out the hot air gun. by taking a couple of seconds to see how I had, make sure I matched the wires up the same way as I did the last one. When I run this through the cable chain now, once I let this cool down a little bit, and run this through the cable chain, we'll be able to then trim the length, cut, and do this end the same way that we did this one. It'll make our wiring go a lot easier and make sure that we don't inadvertently wire it wrong at the board side and blow up our new servo. Yeah, well, Colin, I will tell you, I've done that numerous times myself, and that's a blast. And yes, savage, 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 savage. I will embrace that. Now comes the fun part. But I think that servo needs to slide directly in. So I am going to need to take the encoder piece off. So undo this connection. One screw on this side, and I know you guys probably can't see what I'm doing now. So these things over here are cooling down and I'm burning my knuckle. So I'm going to, I unplug the encoder, and now I'm going to undo the screws on each side so I can drop the encoder portion and get that out of the way. So fun trying to do this without being able to see. Yeah, it works in a pinch. And like I said, if I was doing, like if I'm going to sit down and do a big long wiring harness, I'd have my heat gun out, but I'm not going to get the heat gun out for three current or for three connections. Doesn't make any sense to me. Oh, get off it. Okay. Now our encoder falls off, and that gives us full access to our servo up here, which is tiny screws. I'm not sure if this will fit on there or not. Oh, wait, those we use there. Me being lazy. Looking at it from a weird angle does not help, but using eagle eyes. No, it is a Phillips head. Okay, I thought for a second that for whatever reason they were Torx head, and I was like, who the hell would put Torx head on these, and why did I actually use them? But no, they're Phillips. We just gotta. I don't think a normal person at this point would have went and looked up the pulled up the build manual so that they can try and figure out what they need to take this back apart the easiest. We're just going to heathen our way through it because why not? What's happening? Hey, Hybrid Robotics, thank you for the resub. All right, there's I'm trying to figure this out without possibly having to take the whole selector arm back off, but let me not what I did. What I'm doing is pulling up the Rage Rabbit carrot feeder manual here so that we can figure out how this darn thing went in there. And if we're going to wind up having to take it all the way apart to mess with it. So I remove those two little tabs. Mount the Savix in the holder. I can do that now. So I'll just take my Savix with the arm, with the servo arm facing that little depression. Hard on the ground. That's how we're going to mount that. So look at it like this. Flip this over the top of it. Use the two screws that came with it that are up here. Mount it to these. And then for giggles, start trying to get those screws in. Try not to strip them. Try and get them back out without once again stripping them. And drill the holes out in the plastic part a little bit like you probably should have to start with. Not much, but I am going to use a very small drill. What do I got? I've got a 1 millimeter. That looks small enough to potentially do harm to myself. And that's not going to do anything. So if it's too tight and the 1 mil goes right on through, then we'll try and put that back in there and we'll grab the 1.5 mil. I just want to try and open the hole up slightly without making it too large, because then if I make it too large, then the screw won't work. I realize that you guys probably cannot see a darn thing that I'm doing here. So, like I said, just opening those holes up just slightly to give the uh, screw a chance to bite a little bit. And make it just a little bit easier, because the last thing you want to do is strip the head of these screws and have it partially in, because then you're probably not going to get it back out. Or at least not an easy and fun way. Just a tad bit more. I think I'm starting to strip that out. What I would like to do, part of me that wants to just grab some M2 by 10 self tappers, because these should be clear of everything, and I can just use some self tappers that have a hex head on them, which makes it so much easier to do. This is going into injection molded. It would have just went probably really easily in. Because we're going into a printed part, there's probably more plastic there than it's used to encountering. That went in a lot easier. Now, let me see if I can get the other side back out, or if I have sufficiently stripped it to the point where it's not coming back out easy. I think that is the case. I do not have a pair of band pliers Good news is a pair of standard needle nose pliers worked well. Texas, how's it going? Yes, there is a big metal box in the way. We're working to replace our Enraged Rabbit carrot feeder servo with the Savix. So we had to wire in some extension, and we're going to have to mount the servo and then route it through our cable chain as appropriate and fiddle with things up here because, it's always better to fiddle things that are higher or lower than are actually comfortable to work on them. That, and I was fiddling around waiting for a few other people to pop in. Feeling slightly scatterbrained. That part we're done with, so that can go here. This can go here. Things out of the way so I don't burn myself or stab myself. Okay, coffee. As if you were playing around near budding poison ivy. Oh, really? That's going to stink. Once again, Hybrid Robotics, thanks for the resubbing for a tier 1 sub. I appreciate that. So we've got at least our servo mounted in the part, and there will be a spring for spring tensioning. We might want to untension said spring before we go too much further, because if not, that could cause us some harm. We will untension this spring. Yeah, I'm trying hard not to take this whole selector arm off and things because I will go down the quote unquote proverbial rabbit hole. And I'm going to have one more zip tie I need to cut. And I have 10 or 15 of those right next to a wire that you really, really, really do not want to cut. And then remove the tension. And out comes the old servo. In is going to go the new servo. Yeah, that. This end needs to go into the little cleft area a little bit. Then it should rotate on in there. Should rotate on in there. Why are you not rotating on in there? That's not on that side. Oh, well, that figures. My screws are jutting out a little bit too much. We'll solve that though. Okay, that's fully seated. Come in here with the wire snips and just cut off the tips of the screw. Flush with the printed part. Currently break another pair of snips. All right, I see all these people like cut screws with snips, and then every time I try and do it, I like damage my snips. But I guess we're just going to do this the old-fashioned way. That's not going to work either. Wow, dang it. Well, try with the one. Pittsburgh ones. If that doesn't work, then I have to go out in the garage to get the Huskies. See if I can rip up the jaws on those. Yeah, I'm just having no luck. Apparently the screws are stronger than my nips are. That was definitely fouling on the printed part, not letting things. Ay, ay, ay. Why do we have to be such a pain in the butt? Put it this way, it's probably a sign that I just need to want to go and buy a new set of tools. I'll just keep trying until I break up piece or break one of my tools and then have to go to the store get new tools because why not? It doesn't take much for me to have a desire to go and buy new tools. That's for sure. And if you're doing this, folks, please, please have some, don't rely on eye squints, right? Uh, what I was doing was I just pulled the screw back out and I'm using the wire cutters on my Husky needle nose pliers, which are a little bit bigger and sturdier. I'll get the threads lined up in there where I'm going to cut. So line up your threads where you're going to cut. And then I take this side, put it face down on my mat when I squeeze. So the cut piece hits the mat and it's contained on where it's going. It's not going to pop up. It's not going to hit me in the eyes or any other body part that would be painful. So we just snip that end off, throw that in the garbage. And we'll take our now shortened screw and rethread it in there. There we go. And now the screws are not above the printed part, we should be able to get that to rotate in there. So once again, just rotates in there and it's now held in place, friction fit there. We'll be able to bring this down route our wires through, round and through the cable chain. Probably put a couple of zip ties around it. Gotta love zip ties. Oh yeah, you'll see me. I had it facing right down on. I had it sitting like this, right down on my mat, on my mat that I have over here that you see me solder on all the time. And that way, it's immediately hitting that silicone piece, and because it's silicone and it's sort of trapped in this well when it finally breaks, because I'm sitting it down like this and squeezing it. So it's going to immediately hit that mat and have really no place to go but that area right there. So it's not going to bounce around. And that's about the safest that I can do it without, like, hey, let me go get the angle grinder or a Dremel tool and a vise and a whole bunch of other stuff. And now we're going to work on some cable management. Yep, this pair is. See if we can't fix that. I have to buy a new printer to get a couple of new pairs of snips. And I jest. I do jest. I don't need to buy a new printer because, well, I have one sitting here behind me. I'm up here, so I can try and work on this without falling over, but I need to get this routed up and through the cable chain. Easiest way possible. Easiest way possible would be to take it off, but we'll see if we can't slide it right over the top of the other cable. Just like that. And yeah, I made this longer than it needed to be just to be on the safe side. Try and get these links well. So we're going to have to Why does it look like it's hitting? Is like this is hitting, but is it going to be an issue? Still be an issue. I'm going to have to put a longer screw in this something. It's not going to hit the thing before it bottoms out on the. No, it'll go in. Okay. Wire management. We had another zip tie that goes over on this side. Safety 325th. Yeah, we'll put safety down there somewhere. We'll be safe when the spouse is around to tell us how much of an idiot we're being. Some of us will take that hint, many of us won't. But you know. So who all is going to Rocky Mountain Rep Fest? And are you flying in, driving in, part of the above, none of the above, like planes, trains, and automobiles? Be good for the time being. Now we end off with the wire. Always, always, always a good thing to do. Back in place. Latch. Side. That could go in with no problems. Not. So what are we going to do about that? There's a pocket. Okay. Getting slightly pushed down. Two screws. All the spring. Servo in there. Servo option. Installation is identical for the. Okay. That's what I thought. I just put those in there, but there's a screw that should go here to make the pivot point. And what if I told you there was never a screw there to make that a pivot point, and that may have been causing our problem the entire time? Because I only have two screws up here, and these two screws up here are for mounting our encoder. So how much you want to make a bet? There was an M3 by 20 screw that was never installed right, and that allowed our springy to push to push this side of the servo down instead of it having a, let's say, M3x20. Not making a M3x18 maybe? M3x20, that looks less. Oh, hold on. Angle servo mount, insert it into the captive channel in the selector cart, press down, insert or temporarily insert, secure it with an M3x20. Press the spring, put in the M3x12, zip tie, the encoder, yep, nope. That's what it is we temporarily put the screw in and then we take that out and we use it to hold the selector cart in, or I'm sorry, the encoder in, which will then go through the Savic servo and put it in its appropriate place. There we go. That's what we're missing. See? Read the instructions all the way. Okay, there you go, Pete. So you're flying into Denver and driving up to Loveland. That's our plan. Me and Evil Diesel are flying into Denver. We should be getting into Denver. I think it's like 10:30. And then we're going to drive from Denver up to Loveland. Mrs. Dragon will already be out there. She's going to pick us up at the airport, and they should be bringing 2 cars so that she'll be able to go back herself. And me and Evil Diesel will drive up with all the stuff that she's driving out with, so that we'll have stuff for our table there. Yeah, if you put that RTFM t-shirt on, welcome in, that'll at least be somebody in the stream with it on. And I won't have to put mine on because you'll be doing it for the stream. If you could do that, I'd appreciate it. Fun time. But yeah, that's our plan. Is we're going to fly in, then drive the rest of the way, and we're staying at the hotel right across the street. But I was talking with Chris, as in KB3D, and our plan is we're going to drive up there, and we should get there in time that we can help him and Chris too, and everybody unload the KB3D booth. And hopefully we'll be able to get like near them in the maker tables, so that that way if I need anything, I can go over there and just buy it from them real fast, like I do it. Seems like the last 3 shows I've been to. Okay, now one other thing I'm going to do is scroll down through here. Because we haven't done the servo arm yet. Talk about the servo arm up here yet? Nope, nope, nope. There will be a link where it'll be like, hey, we didn't do the servo arm. Click here and go do the servo arm. and it'll open up to the web document. Idler adjustment, tensioning the belt, servo wires, ERCFv wires, drag chain, electric motor. We still need to crimp our end. There we go. This is what I was looking for. The installation of the ERCFv will be done as part of the setup and calibration step here. Boom. Allow. So setup calibration. That document open on. Okay. Over there, let me switch the window. There we go. So this is where we're going to got happy hair installed, and we have happy hair installed. Our MCU and pin validation's done. Hardware config is going to be the same because we're going to cut and terminate our wires the same as before. Oh, hey, Nick, welcome on in. Welcome on in. Variable files, check in stops and all sensors. Check motor movement and direction. That's all. Haven't changed any of that yet. Motor, haven't changed any of that yet. Attaching the servo arm. So that's where we're going to need to attach the servo arm. Before we do, though, we need to terminate, kind of figure out the length here, terminate this, but we're going to go ahead and do some cable management. That there, cable over here is what these things together. Uh-oh. I think one of my cameras just worked off. I think that's because I stepped on the connector, the extension cable connector for that camera. Get that out of the way. In fact, we'll take this and put it back over there so I don't keep hitting it. Come down here, figure out about how much length we need. We'll cut this at the appropriate length, and we'll have to do some terminations. For those of you that have been following along on several of our other builds, we have been working on a D0 droid build, and we've also been working on a words are failing me. A D0 droid build, and we've been working on a I was going to say Death Racer, not a Death Racer. I need to build the BattleBot still. So next week, I think we're going to build a BattleBot on stream. I need to build two of them, so I'll probably build one off stream to make sure and get get the process down and then build the other one on stream. You can kind of see how we're going through the process there. And it'll be an ant weight BattleBot spinner type. And by ant weight, let me rephrase that. There's different ant weight classifications based on whether you're in the EU, US, or whatnot. It's a 150 gram plastic robot with it uses a carbon fiber arm to support the blade. And I was looking, and the use of carbon fiber, even though it's a standard drone arm part, may actually disqualify it from the rules that they have set. So I'll take it. If I can run it, great. If I can't, well, I'll still run it. I just won't run it in the competition. And when I say I'll run it, I'm not running it. Mrs. Dragon's going to run it. I am building it for her. And I'm going to let her loose with my Death Racer as well. God help us all. If she's out there, by the way, I love you, honey. Hey, Nick. Yeah, so I've actually got two different ones. I've got two chassis for the one style done. The other one, I'm also going to print and hopefully try and build, but I may have to order some additional parts for it. And it's whether or not those parts come in as to whether or not it will be at Rocky Mountain or show up in time for Murph. Try and keep messing with that to make it work, and I know better. So grab a different pen. The way crimping starts. Does anybody else like have 2 or 3 failed crimps when they just first get started, and then by once they get the first couple of bag crimps out, cutting them off and restarting, then all of a sudden it's like you go through the rest of the entire build when every crimp's just beautiful. I kind of feel like that's a requirement. And don't ever put like say, oh, well, I need to crimp 3 pens. Just take 3 out and put everything else away like you're going to get them done right on the first try. Because yeah, that's almost a guaranteed you're going to fail a crimp. Yeah, I do that as well. If I'm doing the 24s and stuff like that, and I wind up using the first 2 down here at this jaw end. If I'm doing like 20s, then I'm doing the 1.3. 1.3 to 1.6. I think this is going to be another purchase. Like these were iWis, but I used a couple of jaws like so much that it almost feels like, oh, I'm going to need to swap those out soon. The red, green. Oh, this red went to red. What I'm doing is this is the end that I cut off so I can pull the wire through. So I need to just make sure I put these pins in the right order. So white we did to the orange, so that figures I prep these all 180 degrees off from the needed to. And for those of you that were on previous streams, you may remember me saying that be careful and be aware. The RGB terminal on the boards here, every single one of our end stops or whatever that are in a row here, and I probably need to switch cameras again. Bear with me, and hopefully. Yes. Awesome. So, end stop, all these are end stops through here, and then we'll have the RGB, the encoder, and the servo that we just put in. Every single one of these pins, the bottom is positive, the center is ground, and then the top is signal. Except for the RGB. The RGB, the power and signal, or excuse me, the ground and signal are swapped. So it goes power, signal in the middle, and ground at the top. So be aware of that. That is the only pin, or the only connector in this entire row of pinnage or of connectors that has the ground in a different place. And if you're not paying attention and looking at the diagram, I can almost guarantee that you're going to pin that wrong and blow your LEDs. At a minimum, you'll blow the LEDs if you don't bork the board itself. We can talk about whether that's bad board design or whatnot, but I think the only reason they did that is because it lines up for direct wiring up to the RGB lights, because the RGB lights, you have the positive on one end or on one side of the connector, the negative's on the opposite side of the connector, and the signal's in the middle. So I think that's the only reason it's done that way. But just want to do a public service announcement. So when you do wire up your LEDs, you don't blow them right off the bat for having them wired in the wrong sequence. Okay. So I think we're back. We got that part done. The servo arm, we're going to attach the servo arm without twisting the servo. Love that part. And actually, I think what I'm going to do now, since we have everything buttoned back up and we don't have the servo arm installed, what I want to do though is turn it back on so that potentially the servo arm itself is energized and it will self-center if it needs to before I go through and do the next part, which is putting and mounting the servo arm. So I think put that there. Servo arm. These two can go down here and out of the way for now. Our screw for our servo arm, the tiny screw is right there. Let me boot the printer back so that I can get her plugged in again without any issue. Power's applied. No, nobody saw any magic smoke or sparks out of here, did they? No? Good. Good. Struggling, but she's coming up. Lights, and we're back up. And by the way, folks, I did get my both lights up again. I had a dumb moment, and I'll show you where it happened. I'll bring you full screen so I can show you where it happened. Oh, awesome, Mayhem. Good deal. Once again, I don't know how you do them, but when I do the CB1s, I do not do their clipper version because it's the one that they've pre-configured for the Huracan. I always do the minimal OS install and then go through and use Kaya to upload everything. But yeah, I love the Pi 4B and the CB1. So I'm going to go over here and look at my printer config. And I'm going to scroll down. I am going to desk scroll here, so be careful. Get nauseous. And let me get down here to the LED section. Okay. So here's the issue. When this name and this name are the same, it's reading this file sequentially. So it says, okay, for my NeoPixel, this is the pin. Be for this one. Pin that this strip is on. They're on separate independent pins, right? So then it reads this one next and it says, oh, my pin for my NeoPixel, just my NeoPixel, is PC14. So then it turns this light on and this one doesn't come on. So when you name this one NeoPixel 1 and this one NeoPixel 2, now they both come on because they're two different names for NeoPixels. So that was my issue because I'm running them separately and I didn't join them. I just had to make sure that these names were different. So yeah, that was me being a dummy. Now the other thing we're going to need to do before we can actually do things, because you'll notice I've got my printer config and I was printing straight into the back of the printer without using the ERCFv earlier because this is my base printer config. So I need to simply come in here and rename this and just do a dash base config. My name, you can call it whatever, you can just call it base, right? Rename it, come over here to happy hair, rename this to printer config, restart Clipper. By the way, I am not doing an update because chances are, and we've seen this before, if I update the happy hair, I've got to go through and redo everything because it forces you to reinstall happy hair and go through the configuration again. So we're just going to restart the firmware, which will then make our ERCFv. And I don't know if you just heard, but the servo just moved, which is what I was you probably didn't hear it, but the servo just moved. So that's what I wanted, is for the servo to move. And we need to run the command for MMU servo up. And this is going to put the servo in what it thinks is the up position. Okay? I paste that in there and run it. I'll hear my servo move again, which should put it in the up position. We need to do that prior to attaching the servo arm. Then when we attach the servo arm, do not twist the servo. So as you're tightening it down on the shaft, be careful. If you feel that it twists, then stop, rerun that command again so it gets it in the right location, the default location to start with, so that we can tune the up down. So when we mount our servo arm, we need to mount it in such way that this flat surface is as close to possible being aligned with the body of the servo. So let me climb up here, try and do this without falling over. Plug of cold coffee. Oh, and so thank you. Big thanks to DB3D Dan for helping me get the hookup. We got well, actually, let me get the servo arm on there, and then I'll switch camera views. We're going to try and see if Digital Dragon can do this without falling off his stool onto the printer. No. Yeah, but I'm going to try and put it on this hold up. Might be easier for me. Probably be easier for me to align it this way. When you go to get this on there, there are some tiny grooves in here. You want to get those lined up with on the servo so that when you push it on the gear, that it's lined up properly. Inverted, oh so tiny screw. Feels like I've got to give it so much pressure to get that seat. Get it to seat. You should be able to get the screw in down on the strip it. Now I do want to go back here and do that up command again, just to make sure it's where we think it is. Move, and that's not the right way. Ah, damn. Something to be cognizant of. The Savix and the MG90S are reversed. So as far as direction of movement and stuff, so now let me see if I can unscrew this and get this back off. There we go. So we need to go into our config because we told our config that we were using an MG90S. So MMU base, and I believe hardware. X motors, selector step here, selector servo. Servo, maximum angle 180, that's good, that's good. Entry servo. basically there. Wasn't there, was it in ERCFv2, 8 lanes, that's good. Gear velocity and stuff, that's good. Servo configuration. Up down angles and such. I thought there was a place where we told it whether we had. Ah. So you'll notice that the MGN 90 gets set at 30 and the Savix gets set at 140. That's the issue. So we're going to take this and change this. 140. This one will go to 30. It's the exact opposite between the two. Then this angle might stay at 6. We need to do a save and restart. Okay, Mayhem. Yeah, it's definitely, it's not that hard. Um, when I'm doing a actual Raspberry Pi, right? Then I will load Mainsail OS through the Raspberry Pi imager. When you're doing the CB1, whether it's directly onto the board on a controller or on the Pi 4B sled, um, download the the minimal install, which gives you no GUI and no clipper and all that, just basic OS. You go ahead and use the Raspberry Pi imager to drop the image on there. But remember, you cannot set the configs on a CB1 module through the Raspberry Pi like gear tool like you do for a Raspberry Pi. It won't read it. The file that gets generated won't be read. So the instructions are there on the CB1 GitHub page. So just follow those instructions, do the minimal install, log in, and then do the do a GitHub search for Kaya and run through Kaya. If you got any questions, just let me know and I can jump online and hang out with you. Holy crud, Polymaker just rated with 52 viewers. Well, let me change scenes real fast. Welcome on in, everybody. My name is Digital Dragon, and this is my channel. We call this location the Dragon's Den, because once again, I'm Digital Dragon. Welcome on in, everybody that just rated in. Zombie, Creatix Brit, Grain, yeah. I'm going to just go with Grain. Hey, Stephen Poole, welcome on in. Welcome on in, all the Raiders. K2 Kevin, nice. Some of you know me. Like I said, my name's Digital Dragon 72. I am a 3D printing variety streamer here on Twitch. You may say, well, what is that? Well, like most 3D printers, I assemble and modify 3D printers such as the Prusa Mark IVs that come pre-built or mostly pre-done, and you just do a final assembly of it. Do full up printer builds like you see right in front of me and the lineup behind me, from Borons to Annex Engineering K3s. I do some prototyping, such as the Mercury or the Zero G Mercury 1 right here, which is a full frame up build. I beta tested the full frame up build and enclosure and helped get the, I'll say, some of the orders of operations for the build up for that one. We also built the trad rack under a closed prototype and various other things. This particular printer that you see in front of you right here, and I will give you a different view, is a Trident 350 kit built from a deep fried heroin set of kits. And this is built using Polymaker ASA and Pop Blue and Pop Pink using a white frame. I think it's a pretty good color combination. And we've been working on getting the Enraged Rabbit carrot feeder working. We were having some issues with servo consistency doing the MG90 servos. So we've been taking it apart and swapping the servo on the selector for the tool head, or the gantry up here, the selector, to the Savic servo, which just has a little more oomph. But yeah, welcome on in, everybody. You're going to see me climb up here and try not to break my neck as I try and reinstall this servo arm. So for those of you that are new to 3D printing, um, the Enraged Rabbit carrot feeder is a multi-material unit similar to, we'll say, either the MMU3 from Prusa or the Trad Rack as well. The Trad Rack is Annex Engineering's version of an MMU. And then, it's, I'll say it does the same functionality as an AMS, right? So you can take multiple different filaments, or in this case, colors of filament. Dang it. Did that make it off the printer? It did. Okay. So basically what this will allow you to do is change colors similar to like an AMS, right? The AMS is a closed solution by uh, Bamboo Labs, but this will let you do the same thing. In this case, I've got a 8-lane MMU setup. And on my Trad Rack, which I will be reprinting and rebuilding to match the color scheme and the latest Trad Rack files, I believe I had a 13-lane Trad Rack setup. Ran out of PTFE tubing? Oh man, that stinks. That stinks. So we've got the arm, whoops, this one. We've got our arm installed. Didn't have us in the up position. It should be in the up position, but let me, of course. So I forgot to put it in the up position versus the move position when I put the arm on. So we're going to try and get in there and take the arm back off. Put the servo in the up position. Reset state up. Come back off. Oh, thank you for the follow, Jedi Spidey. Just back to up. The servo's in the correct spot again. We put the arm back on. Okay. So we are in the up position. And we got the arm on. Once the servo arm is attached, screwed into place, run the thing to put it into the up, the correct up angle. Now, one thing that I will note, or that I will say, is before I start running this command with an angle, I believe if I run it with just MMU servo, let me change the right view so you guys can see what I'm doing. It should give me the position. So current servo position is 140. Okay. The down is 30, up is 140, move is set to 61. That's currently how it's set. Ram, how's it going? Welcome in. Okay, so we're in the up position, which means we should be at 140. Now, once the servo arm is attached and screwed into place, run the command servo angle 30 and slowly increase the angle to fine tune the correct up angle where the servo arm just hits the servo body. So we're currently in position. We just mounted that arm. We're at 140. That's what it's telling us to do, is tell it to go to the angle of 140. Then we'll fine tune it to make sure it is in the correct position. And I will say it is there because it just tried. Well, let me rephrase that. It was just trying and it couldn't move anymore. So it is right up against it. Now I'm going to just bring my keyboard up here so I can work from up here. And 1 second. Try and bring our other camera up here so you can see what I'm doing a little bit closer. Okay? Basically moving everybody up here. Okay? There you go. Okay. So what we're trying to do is work on the servo arm that's over here. So I'll try and get you guys in as close as possible so you can see what I'm working on, which is the servo arm right here and how it touches and interfaces with this top hat. So we're supposedly at 140. What I'm going to do is actually go to the move location, which went down and it went way down. That's well past the move location. And in fact, it felt like it hung. So what position? Once again, it feels like it's driving longer than it needs to. I'm just trying to line it up on the selector. So this is the up position. And it appears that that is good and that it is right up on the um, 30. Move much, but did move. That's like 100. We're going to go back to 130. So I believe 135 is kind of where we want to be. Anything more than that, and we're too much. So we're going to come into our machine parameters. We're going to change this. And did I say 130 or 135? So for now, I'm just going to save and close. Back to our dashboard. And we're going to go to the move position next, I believe. We're manually positioned over one of the gates. And we need to go to the down position. So for this, the down position on the Savux is going to be 30 degrees. So that went, and that went, I'll say hard. So I think we may actually be too far. So we'll come up here and move our angle 40. And what we're trying to do, once again, we're going to be looking for repeatability, but we're trying to get the arrow on the Savix tool head lined up with the arrow on the top hat. A little hard to see, but we are way past. Still way past. $80 looks about right. What I'm going to do is go back to position up and then move to angle 80 and see if it repeats into the same location. Okay, so looking at that, maybe 85 instead. No, we're going the opposite way, so 75. 72. What you're seeing me do is just check that the angles are right. Okay, let me see if I can't bring you guys in closer and give you a better view of what I'm. So it, the servo arm, there we go. You see there's a arrow at the tip of the servo arm, and it's lining up with an arrow on that top hat. I can get my light to help. So that's what we're trying to do, is to get those lining up and make it repeatable. Once I can get it repeatable, so I'll go up, come back down, go up, come back down. And as long as it's repeatable, then that is what I will put in the config. Hey, Chris, welcome on in. Sorry about the camera view there. Let me try and get us back to where we were. And focus. So We have swapped out the servo for the Savix. It is working well. That's 78. Definitely in the down position. So we're going to come back over here and we're going to set our down position in our parameters. Down angle is 78, which means our move angle is going to be somewhere higher. So I'm not going to do a full restart just yet, but I am going to try and, so between 78 and 130, let's try between 78 and 130. Let's go for an angle of, say, 110. Okay, and you'll see now, get you guys an angle here. You see how that is now pretty much lined up with the trough in our top hats there. That's what we're looking for, is so it has the ability to run the full length of the top hats without catching. Right? So that's kind of the area that we're looking. We just went to 110. That looks pretty good. So now we'll come back in here to our parameters. Set this angle 110. Do a save and restart. Welcome on in, Chris. How are you doing? Hopefully you're doing well. Taking a quick look. Up. There we go. I got a tracking number, Chris, so that's good. So we're good. What we're going to do is we're going to home our MMU. Still in the move position. I'm just going to move us around a bit. Right? I'm going to home MMUs. Do MMU home. That homed, and it should have lined up on the first lane, but I'm not sure if it did. We're in the up position, it looks like. Going to go with no, down's good. We think we're in the up position. We're going to go to the down position. And that drove hard and made a noise. It's in the right spot. It's lined up, but I don't think we're lined up on the gate. And this is where we're going to have to do some more calibration. So down is good. Going to move. And that did seem to move into the trough. area that we were looking for. Now let's go into up. Okay. Now, I think we're going to need to go back in and do some recalibration because we're not lining up uh, on the cart fully. We're still off to the side a little bit. So good there. We updated the positions and the angles. So we're good there. Now what we need to do is go to our calibration commands. All right, let me get back down off of there so I don't break my neck. Keep this kind of over here so you can see a little bit up front and personal as we're playing. Whoops. Me and my extensions. Do that. Go there. Stop being a pain. All right, Chris, does your camera setups get testy with you? Okay, there we go. So you'll notice how we're kind of not fully lined up on that lane yet. So that's an issue that we'll have to fix. Oh, cool. Your office space is in the so has your warehouse and all your equipment and stuff, has that been set up and in correct places? It's just now setting up the office space. Thank you for the follow, Tin Talon. Welcome in. Digging your way through a mountain of moving boxes. Yeah. The cameras have unionized on you. Exactly. So we went through the MMU calibration steps on one of the last streams. And here's the interesting thing, right? Hardware is working. Yes, our hardware is functioning. Calibrate the selector. You can do this at any time, right? Which we're going to need to redo. And then notice this track over here. In fact, I'll go full screen so you guys can see it. So hardware was working. When we replaced the MMU servo. Once we replace this, we need to go back and recalibrate our gear because we just fixed up-down servo stuff, and then recalibrate the encoder and recalibrate the Bowden and you see how we're doing this all the way down? So basically we changed one piece and we have to go through our whole recalibration steps again, which is so much fun. And we're going to do it with a spool of filament, hopefully. And we'll have to have fun. Let me find a spool of PLA, preferably. So if I tear it up in the process or chew it up, I'm not too heartbroken about it. We'll go back to our coax green PLA that we were using before. And what I want to do is a couple of things. One, we're going to bring our Bowden tube around and connect it into the front. Okay. I'm not going to go through our buffer system just yet. I'm going to go straight in through the back because I need to try and get things lined up. And it's going to be easier to just work from the back on this without going through the buffer system, especially if we're going to validate all the lanes. Now, what it's doing right now is trying to load this filament, but my lane isn't fully lined up. So that's where we need to start going through our calibrations. So the selector offsets. Start by putting the servo in the up position. We need to shut the MMU motors off and then go into the up position. So I'm going to come up here and go to MMU motors off. Make sure we're in the up position. And that allows me to work my filament in all the way. Should allow me to work my filament in all the way. If I don't, you know what? It may be that I'm literally off a little. Push that out of the way. Am I even getting through the no. This is a busted end. And by busted end, I mean it has a crappy tip on it. So try and get a little bit nicer tip on it. To be able to get all the way through there, and I'm not. What is up with that? Why is my filament being a booger? Two steps forward, two steps back. Getting through the path. Okay, we're hanging up, going through the filament path. There we go. Getting hung up on the lip. And once again, I think it's just the filament itself. This is old filament. It probably needs to be dried, quite honestly. to get me a good tip and stuff. So yeah, it's just hanging. Filament's getting hung. It's coming through nicely, and then right here it's catching a lip, and it's not able to ride up into the slot for whatever reason. Boom, like that. It just went in. So it's just more of a pick the angle to get a nice good tip. And this is why you need to have good tips on your filament, or you're going to have issues inserting and removing filament. You're ready for normal again? Yeah, I can understand that. Through there. And once again, it's not helping that this filament has a gentle bend to it already. Radius, not so gentle. Okay. For now, that's all I really need is just to get the filament through the front of the lane there. Get our selector back in place. We'll get this where we think it's in place so we can get the filament to go all the way through. That going in relatively unimpeded. So this gives us our position for 0. Now I'm going to pull this back through the lane so it doesn't get hung up trying to move. So we're in the parked position now with the filament, so it won't catch. Now we'll move to the next step. So, and that next step is MMU calibrate selector. So it knows how many lanes we have. So it knows how to set things up. So when we do the MMU calibrate selector, it should be able to automatically figure out all of our lanes. Right? So what did it just catch? That was bad. That failed. But I'm trying to see. So the issue is not issue is it's not catching anything. It is tells me how it moves one way, and then when it comes back, this is still what we were having is where it was kind of dragging down at this end. So I'm wondering, and I still have to check this out, if it's that the belt is riding up on the gear somehow when it gets down here. So let's try this again, and I'll keep a closer eye on it. When it's getting down here, something is happening that is causing it to bind. And I can't for the life of me figure out what. I'm not feeling any excess. I'm not feeling any excess tension. I'm not seeing a belt ride up. Tension wise, it doesn't feel like there's more tension at any point along the path. Ay, ay, ay. Why? Okay. Zombie, welcome in. Hey, Maker Viking. Thank you for gifting Maker Viking a tier 1 sub there, Chris. Actually, raffle. See who did I miss? Welcome on. Well, welcome in. Why not? Because. So, Chris has sent me a care package, which should hopefully be here tomorrow uh, by end of day. And that care package will include um, the parts needed to continue building on Black Box, or at least a good portion of those parts that we'll need. We still don't have a wiring harness yet, so unfortunately, that's going to still be an issue. Now, Chris, I was going to say, can I easily wire the printer if I only put that left side panel on and do the um whatchamacallit, the water cooling and stuff? Basically, if I go through and do just the left side of the printer needed to be able to mount all the water cooling stuff, will I be able to get easy access to those wires needed on the left side to plug into the controller board or the tool heads? And what I'm talking about is, I can't really show you, uh, but Chris knows what I'm talking about. Basically, I don't want to do something and then have to take a bunch of stuff apart when I do get the wiring harness. But anyhow, right here, what I'm going to do is go into, was it hardware? What are our, the gear? This one is half an amp current. The selector, this one, we're pushing 0.85. Pushing 0.85 amps. I really don't want to go higher than that on that motor, but we'll go to 0.9. I also want to look at parameters. Your speed, reader, selector. This is what I was looking at. We had dropped the selector speed down a lot, um, because we're having that same phenomenon. As it gets to this end, it starts like bogging down for whatever reason. But I went and I checked the distance between the rods here and here, thinking maybe that somehow these rods had gotten out of whack and it was binding at the rods, and it's not. Now, these are Delrin bearings in the selector, and I did see somebody say that they had to go from the Delrin bearings to standard LM8 UUs to get consistency. I wouldn't think I would need to do that, but that is an option, is to swap the Delrin bearings in these out for standard ball bearings, because that may be the issue, that these haven't worn in much yet, and that's why we're still dragging, because they're self-lubricating. We shouldn't have to lubricate those rods, and we haven't yet. Yes, I could also wipe down those rods with a little bit of ETFE oil and see if we can't get them a little slippier than normal. Been lurking a while? Okay, no worries. Yeah, care packages are good, especially care packages from KB3D, because like he gives me all kinds of cool stuff. Normally it's in exchange for my paycheck, but we're just going to give these a light wipe down with some PTFE based 3-in-1 oil. So why that felt like it was jerky. Oh, I know what it is, because I'm fighting the motor, because the motor's just always a good thing. Nothing like power drive, back powering the board. Okay, moved a little bit. We um we do need to restart. I don't want to drop the speed anymore. I think 80 should be fine. Like I said, it was like 100 and something to start with, and I've dropped it down slowly and increased the amp rate, or yeah, the amps on, or the current on the board on the driver, to try and get better out of this motor. But I may want to swap this motor with a more reliable motor, like an actual LDO motor, because it starts to annoy me. So we're good. Let's try and calibrate that selector again, right? Worked. That worked. Okay. Maybe that's all we needed to do. Although it shouldn't be necessary, there are options to update a single position if you run into problems. So we can go back and run this calibration for each lane. Lube is bad for IGUS bearings. Oops. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. If they die a quick death, like I said, I one, I have other ones I can replace them with, and then two, I could always switch over to regular Element UU. Calibrated our servo already. Calibrate your gear stepper. So this is where we test how much filament comes through. In this case, we're going to push our filament through to where it comes through the gate, right here at the front, where it's just lining up with the front of the gate. I thought I'd switch you guys over to this one. Seriously? Camera, like, stop. That one. Yeah, there we go. Okay, maybe that'll help. So that's where it any small. There we go. Okay. Pegasus releases PTFE that they move. The lube will hold stuff. It causes the bearings to wear out too fast. Well, that's what I was thinking, was it would basically release the PTFE. Now, I just used a PTFE based lubricant, so it shouldn't do anything more than it was a PTF based 3-in-1 oil, very light. Most of it got wiped back off, so we'll see over time. Now what we're going to do is we're going to tell our servo to go into the down position, which should engage the drive gear on the first lane. And then we are going to tell it, whoops, to move 100 millimeters. And it pushed a bit of filament out. We're going to measure that to see if it's 100 millimeters. We're going to measure it straight from the gate. And we got 85. So what we'll do, whoops, not there. What we'll do is we'll come back here and we'll tell it what we measured. Oh, darn it. Paste, measured 85. It's going to do some calibration or some calculations, right? Gear calibration has been saved. It goes into a variable file that it then reads. Yeah, worst case, they get loose. And like I said, I've got several over here. Got, yep, we've got other replacements. And I also got some standard Element UUs that are already lubed up. And I pulled off something else. I can't remember what. So we can pop them out and replace them. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to tell it to go up so I can pull my filament back out. I'm going to pull my filament back out to where it's right at the front edge here again. Okay. We're going to tell it to go back down. And then we're going to tell it to move 100 again. Now we'll remeasure this. And awesome sauce. We're now at 114. All right, we went through the same thing before. Okay, so we just go through this a couple of times, and in essence, we're going to basically dial in right on the spot we need. So go down again, tell it to move 100, measure again. So we're at 102. So redoes its calculation, move up, pull our filament back. Down. We said 100. And I'll say we kind of overcorrected a bit. So now we're at 98. I don't know how it's doing its measurements, but also one thing that we can do if we're really up to it is we can just cut the filament and force it to use a set, like if our numbers start getting way off, we'll cut the filament so that we're not going through the same amount that's already got previous gear marks. Okay, and that kind of stalled a bit. That tells me we may have some filament that I'll say is fouled or spoiled. So I just pulled that forward. I'm going to cut it flush. That way it's not rehashing through chewed up filament in the gears. I'm going to tell it to go 100 again. And we just stalled. So something's wrong. We should be in the down position. We are. Here's that we're lined up in the down position. Something is off. Okay. So I pulled the filament back. I am going to go ahead and home the MMU. In the up position. We're not lined up, so something is off on our lineup. Like I said, it's all about consistency and getting things consistently lined up. Or I should say with MMUs, it's all about getting things consistently lined up. If you're not consistently lined up, your filament path having a hard time getting this through. And that's telling me that I'm hanging on the encoder because the encoder's moving. And it's because I cut that flush. It may be I just need to grab a different spool of filament. That's properly lined up. You. Okay, so this is not lining up right. I don't know if it lost steps. So we're going to need to reset or redo the selector offsets. So that should be lined up, and it is properly lined up again. Not sure what the deal was there. It says selector calibration has been saved. We haven't done any type of we didn't do any type of thing that would need a save config, but for giggles, do a save config and restart. And with our selector set, we should be on tool 0. What I want to do is motors off, move that somewhere, tell it to home, and make sure it lines up on tool 0. Did, so not sure what that was about. Okay, so we're in the up position. We're going to go to the down position. We're going to tell it to do a test move of 100. Measure. And we are at 100. So, good deal. Moving on. Whatever is next? Calibrate your gear stepper. Oops, that's what we just did. Calibrate your encoder. Refit the button to the selector. You can insert short length of filament to as you Okay, so now we just need to refit our tube. We're going to keep this in here and refit our tube because all we're doing is checking that the encoder is moving the certain amount. So it's going to think that it's going to go a certain amount and it's going to basically check that distance to calibrate the encoder. And encoder calibration was saved. However, I feel like it spit the filament out. But we'll see. Yeah, encoder is not detecting the expected number of counts. So filament's there. Try this again. Hmm. Feel the need to do that one last time. Adding a bit more tension. Getting some cleaner filament in the spot. Much better. Much better result. Okay, and that has been saved, so that is good. Calibrate the Bowden length. Optionally, the last calibration before use. Now we're going to calibrate the length of the Bowden from MMU gate to extruder entrance. This is important because it allows the MMU to move the filament at a fast pace over the distance because getting to the more complicated part of the load sequence, right? So we're going to try and set this length. Now, what I want to do I believe I want to pull that filament back through to the end. So we're going to do an up. So I can manually pull this back. And kind of get it right there at the beginning of the filament, or at the it's basically right here as if I was measuring it. Then we're going to tell it to do that length. But what I also want to do, because we've run this before, I do want to come in here and look at it gets saved in variables. Yeah, we did it with 1750 the last time. And that's all I was really looking at is what did I have it set to, since this is about the same length. So we want to change this to 1750 when we run the command. Now, it's going to evaluate that by going all the way down to the tool head sensor. So when we tell it to do this, it's going to home the tool head, or home the printer basically, move the tool head to the front left up here, and then it's going to run the filament the full length. We just went into the tool head. And it actually measured 1,200. So we're actually driving it a lot harder than it needs to. So it did 1,273 millimeters the first time and 1,271 the second time. So it's getting there. Okay, so we've got those done, and those have been saved. So now, calibrating the gates. This would allow us to basically calibrate each one of the gates individually. And what that's allowing us to do is to ensure that the gears on each gate are being properly adjusted for. So what we can do is pull our filament out of gate 0, put our filament in gate 1, and it should pick it up, load it to park, and then I can do the same test here for each gate in succession. And this ensures that it understands that, you know, whether a gate's slipping or not, so it can estimate the tension and validate that the encoder is counting properly. Okay, so calibration for gate one's been saved. Now we're going to pull this out. We're going to go over to gate two. We'll just go through and do this process for each gate. Yeah, it's loaded and parked. It helps if I didn't tell it to do the next step, huh? Now, provided that this part goes smoothly and we can get to all gates, this is where we were having issues being able to get through all gates on the last stream. If we can do this for all of our gates, now we've got some reliability and we can go into the next step, which would be configuring the slicer and trying to do a print, which will most likely be the next stream since it's starting to get late on Thursday night. Okay, so something's hung up there. Tip just got buggered, so let me see if I can't get a new tip. All right. Gate three, fourth cart. There we go. Yeah, this is the biggest thing with an MMU, and everything that I'm going through, the AMS is doing, right? They've just got automated routines in the background, and even Happy Hair has a lot of these routines done. But by using the different sensors, it enables this to be done a lot more consistently. Okay, so that lane's done. Now we're going to pull that out and go into the next one over. Is lane 4. Okay, their lane detection issue. So Thursday night, it's Big Jano, right? Community marble races. Has anybody been keeping an eye on Big Jano? So that calibration failed. Try that one again. This is having an issue with feeding the filament in through the gears. I got some. So one of the things that's happening is I think I'm just using a filament that really needs to be dried and properly conditioned. And I'm hanging up on a poor tip of the filament to see if I can't shape this a little bit. In four. All right. So the issue is I'm just not getting past the gear and into the actual. So I need to check lane 4. We'll just put it that way. Check lane 4. Go ahead and try lane 5 and see if we can make progress on 5. So lane 4 we need to check. Okay. So one of the things I was starting to talk about earlier was thanks to my good buddy DB3D Dan, I was able to get a couple of things, which the camera. So 128 gig eMMC module. I know this really doesn't mean anything, but this is a Liber Elect Ultra board and power supply for it. I got 2 sets of these. So we'll be able to do some benchtop projects with these, as well as there may be a new printer build around here that that board may go into. You know, so right, the little. Oh, okay. So this one is not getting into the actual encoder. So we might have a gap or an incorrect lane distance issue there on 6. Let's try 7. I think we're at the same thing here. So 5's good, but 4 we weren't getting into, or we were getting into, but we couldn't actually make it to the encoder because we were running into the actual the side of the encoder. Let's go back and give that another try, one last try in 4. If not, we may have to check the lane distance for 4, 6, and 7 to make sure they're properly lined up. Yeah, so that's trying to hit, but it's not going into the back of it. So we're going to have to work on some lane distances for 4, 6, and 7. Okay. Now, since we got most people here, hey, Shrimp Father, how's it going? I'm going to move this around a little bit. Actually, switch the camera. Hey, everybody. So we're going to do the big shoulder here. So, whoops. Do the big shoulder without dropping it off your shoulder. So we got another big box that arrived. This will be one of our projects that we will get into after Rocky Mountain Rep Fest. Because we're working on the ERCFv, we're finishing up Black Box. I want to try and get both of those done before Rocky Mountain. But this heavy behemoth of 110 volt silvery goodness is a VZBot 235. So we're going to have a VZBot that'll take its place up here on the line. Wow, that was a little heavy. We're going to have a VZBot, which is, it's a 235 size, so it's an Ender 3 size build plate is what it is, right? So smaller build area of a Voron, and it's kind of between the Annex and the Voron as far as the complexity goes. Let's go ahead and we're gonna basically be stopping going any further on this. I need to go and check some lane stuff out. So let me put this other camera away, and we'll bring up some web browser. Take this and get this out of the way. Sorry about that. You go there, get out of the way. For one of these days, I'm going to get things all squared away. The VZBot 235, right there, boom. So I decided to go for the 235 instead of the what is the other one, the 300 size, because I really don't need another 300 plus size printer. I've got a few of them. We'll get down here into the kind of the glamour shots on it. Okay. So I have seen some people that instead of using the printed parts, you can get metal braces here and a couple of other parts that are available as add-ons for some additional rigidity. But once again, it's fully enclosed. It's 0.4 millimeter normal nozzle, 1.75 FDM, bed temp to 120, 5-inch DSI display. It does not include the host computer, so you need to add a Raspberry Pi 4. Once again, we're going to do a Libre Elec Alta with a 128 gig SSD. So that is the plan for this one. I thought there were more pictures in the listing, but give me a second here. Let's do that. There we go. So high speed, high precision. It's a new XY setup. It's the all-wheel drive, so it does have the 4 motors, like so it has 2X, 2Y motors, kind of like our NX Engineering, except I think this truly is a Core XY. Flat cast aluminum sheet, 48 volts driving the X and Y, LDO stainless steel rails, and a metal VZ extruder. So yeah, this was going to be fun. So it has 4 5160 external drivers. I believe it uses a mellow board. Um, the Z-axis uses 10 millimeter linear rods and T8 lead screws. 8 millimeter aluminum build plate with a 750 watt heating pad. And run it on Clipper or RepRap firmware. Once again, that's because of the board that it uses. It does have the VZ hot end assembly. It is a fully CNC machine Z-axis, which is nice. It does have polycarbonate panels, and it does have a CPAP blower for cooling, as well as the side skirt cooling. So the overall size is like 430 by 420 by 475 millimeters with a 235 by 235 by 220 build volume. You know, pretty standard type stuff there. About 24 kilos, 2.2, so 50 something pounds. Be our extruder. Lightweight CNC machine, integrated gear design, 50 to 10. It does have a kind of a twirled, almost like a worm screw drive on the tooth for the filament. And hotbed system, spring steel, magnet, aluminum, 8 millimeter aluminum with a silicone heater. Here's your XY setup where, once again, you've got the crossing. This will be X1, X2, Y1, Y2 type setup. LDO super motors, stainless steel, 48 volt 5160s. So it's pretty good list of components here. I've watched both Nero and Steve builds and Modbot build theirs, and I've been dying to get hold of it. There you go. It's the Mellow Fly Super 8 Pro. And basically your 4XYs will use this daughter board and a ribbon cable to come over to an external 5160 drive. Here's your WS7040. This is your CPAP blower. Aluminum couplers for the Z. Here is the Z axis. And this is just looks all kind of beefy rigid. So I think this is going to be really cool. Lightweight. It does come with a CNC print head, so I don't have to print these sets. It is all machined. I have seen carbon fiber versions of this as well. The LDO super motors. And we got the silver versus the black. Well, I'm going to need to start printing parts out soon to start getting ready for this build. But once again, my plan is not to build this until after Rocky Mountain Rep Rep. But as you notice, you've got the printer and then you've got this backpack with all of the electronics hanging on the back. So I think it's going to be a pretty neat addition to the collection. We also will be getting Milo once those ship. I believe I was hearing the batch. I'm going to have to check. KB3D, if you're still in here, I'm not sure if you are, but if you are, and I'm not seeing you on the list, let me check them over at Janos or Discord later. I'm not sure which batch I'm in on the Milos, but we will be getting a Milo and building a Milo on stream. We will not run it in this room. We will build Milo on stream, and then we will figure out a way of setting some stuff up on the laptop out in the garage to actually run it in the garage, because it ain't running in this room. I'm not sending chips everywhere in this room. But yeah, this is one of the things that's next up on the channel. So cool. All right, everybody. Well, it is Community Marble Race night. I am going to try and get a raid set up right now to head over to see Big Jano. Hopefully he shows up on my list. There he is. I think he's doing some maker coin prints and a few other things. Those remote projects, and it is Community Marble Race night. So thanks everybody for hanging out with me. I really needed this. It's been a long week. We had some family issues this weekend. Was a servo swap worth the trouble? So far, yes. I haven't had any issues with the servos. We are still having issues with the we are still having issues with lanes 4, 6, and 7. 5 loaded just fine, but what I'm seeing is 4, 6, and 7 are slightly off. So I may do the lane recalibration one more time, and if that doesn't work, then I will go through and do the manual lane calibration for lanes 4, 5, or 4, 6, and 7. 5 loaded just fine, but 4, 6, and 7 were slightly off on the spacing. We'll have to solve that. But other than that, everything's working fine. We're right back to where we were. And next up, I have set up the slicer on my laptop, but I need to go through and set up the slicer on screen so that you guys can see all the slicer settings. Because it does give us the slicer setup on how to go through and set up the slicer for. So we'll go through and do this. But technically, we need to do some slicer setup, and I could sit here and immediately try and do like a 2 or 3 color print next stream for this, which would be Tuesday. Barring any other issue, Tuesday would be the next stream for this. Saturday, we're going to be going on with the black box. We can move ahead on the black box, but I don't have the wiring harness yet. I am getting a care package tomorrow from KB3D, so we can finish out tool heads. We can do the tool head adjustment stuff, but I still don't have wiring harness. So that's going to be the holdup that we run into on black boxes. I still don't have wiring. Okay. excuse me, the wiring and the magnetic sensors for the Y and X and stuff. But those, I'll have everything else. So once those things come in, it's going to be a wire stream. And then we won't put the entire enclosure on. We're only going to do the pits that we can. And I don't even think I'll do the water cooling system until I have, let me rephrase it. We will prep everything that we can. I'm not going to start hanging things that require a panel because once I put that first panel on, I think I'm going to lose access to the tool head wiring. And I don't want to do a bunch of stuff that I'm going to have to take back off the printer. So yeah, we'll go as far as we can on Saturday. But thanks everybody. Like I said, I got the raid ready to go over, or I thought I did. I'm starting the raid now. Please get ready to jump over with me over to Big Jano. Let's make a big community jump over to Jano and show him the love. It's community marble race night tonight. So we will be doing that in a little bit here. But thank you everybody. Saturday, we're back to the black box that's sitting over here in the corner. And then on Tuesday, we'll be back to doing this. And I'm going to work on these other lanes off stream to get those figured out. So thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks for joining in. And thanks for listening to me ramble for the last few hours. Let's go over to Jano. Bye now.